Why do you get red eyes, a dry mouth, and an insatiable appetite after consuming cannabis? Today, we're diving into the fascinating science behind these common side effects. Our bodies have a system called the endocannabinoid system, which has receptors all over, including the brain, organs, and immune cells. These are called cannabinoid receptors, mainly CB1 and CB2. When you consume cannabis, cannabinoids like THC bind to these receptors, triggering various physiological responses. So, what about those red eyes? It's not the smoke, as many believe. The real culprit is THC. When THC enters your bloodstream, it lowers your blood pressure. This causes your blood vessels and capillaries to dilate or widen. The capillaries in your eyes, called the ocular capillaries, are part of this. As they expand, blood flow to your eyes increases, making them appear red. The extent of redness can depend on the amount of THC consumed and individual factors like your blood pressure. So even if you eat an edible instead of smoking, you can still get red eyes because the THC is circulating in your system. This effect is temporary and usually harmless, but for some people, it can be quite noticeable. Next up, the infamous Cottonmouth. That uncomfortably dry feeling in your mouth isn't because you're dehydrated. It's actually due to the way cannabinoids interact with your salivary glands. Both CB1 and CB2 receptors are found in the submandibular glands, which are under your jaw and produce over 70% of your saliva. When THC and another cannabinoid, cannabinol or CBN, bind to these receptors, they block the signals from your nervous system that tell these glands to produce saliva. Essentially, your brain is telling your mouth to make spit, but the cannabinoids are intercepting the message, so saliva production decreases significantly, leading to that dry, sticky sensation. Staying hydrated by drinking water can help alleviate the discomfort, but it won't stop the underlying biological process. And finally, let's talk about the munchies. Why does cannabis make you want to eat everything in sight, even if you just had a big meal? This is a more complex process involving a few different parts of your brain. First, THC binds to CB1 receptors in a part of the brain called the olfactory bulb. This significantly enhances your sense of smell, which is closely linked to your sense of taste. Suddenly, food smells and tastes much more appealing. But that's not all. THC also affects the hypothalamus, a key region of the brain that regulates appetite, among other things. In the hypothalamus, there's a group of neurons called pro-opiomelanocortin, or POMC neurons. These neurons are normally responsible for telling you that you're full and suppressing your appetite. However, when THC binds to the CB1 receptors on these neurons, it does the exact opposite. Instead of signaling fullness, it flips a switch and makes them start promoting hunger. So, your brain is essentially being tricked into thinking you're starving, even if your stomach is full. Furthermore, THC stimulates the release of dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter, in the brain's reward center, the nucleus accumbens. This makes the act of eating much more pleasurable and rewarding than it would be normally. So you have a heightened sense of smell and taste, a brain that's screaming, "I'm hungry," and an enhanced feeling of pleasure from eating. It's the perfect storm for a serious case of the munchies. It is also worth noting that the method of consumption can influence the intensity and onset of these effects. When you smoke or vape, the cannabinoids enter your bloodstream quickly through the lungs, and you'll feel the effects, including the side effects, within minutes. With edibles, the THC is metabolized by the liver into a more potent form, 11-hydroxy-THC. The effects take longer to kick in, usually 30 minutes to 2 hours, but they can be more intense and last much longer. This means the red eyes, dry mouth, and munchies might be more pronounced and stick around for a while. So to recap, red eyes are caused by THC lowering your blood pressure and dilating the blood vessels in your eyes. Cottonmouth happens because cannabinoids block the signals that tell your glands to produce saliva. And the munchies are a result of THC enhancing your sense of smell, tricking your brain into feeling hungry, and making food more rewarding. Understanding the science behind these effects not only satisfies curiosity, but also helps explain why they happen to everyone, regardless of how they consume cannabis. It's all just a fascinating bit of human anatomy and physiology at work. Thanks for watching, and if you found this video interesting, be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the science of everyday life. See you next time. And to help us understand what's really going on with the munchies, we're going to take a look at this sagittal head dissection. And you can obviously see some very cool structures here like the nasal septum, the corpus callosum, the brainstem, and my personal favorite, the cerebellum. But what we want to focus on is this small but incredibly important region here, called the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus acts a bit like a thermostat for the body, or in other words, it helps maintain homeostasis. It helps regulate things like temperature, hormones, and hunger. And inside the hypothalamus are specialized neurons called pro-opio-melanocortin neurons, which we'll just call POMC neurons. These neurons are involved in satiety, or feeling full after a meal. So when they're activated, you feel full and stop eating. But here's where things get interesting. THC binds to cannabinoid receptors on these neurons, but it also affects signaling inside the neuron, including interactions at the mitochondria. Mitochondria are the energy-producing structures inside the cells, and when THC alters signaling here, it changes how these neurons behave. Instead of producing a normal "I'm full" signal, there's a release of endorphins that essentially overrides that sensation. The result is increased appetite. Now, a lot of this is still being actively researched, and the exact mechanisms are still being worked out, but the big picture is that THC disrupts normal satiety signaling in the hypothalamus, resulting in the increased appetite. Other hormones are also involved, including leptin and ghrelin, which regulate hunger and fullness. But when people find themselves demolishing an entire bag of chips, this interaction at the hypothalamus is a big part of why that's happening. So up to this point, we have focused on the acute effects of THC. But with repeated or heavy use, it's important to talk about what can happen over time, because this is where terms like tolerance, dependence, and addiction often get mixed together. THC repeatedly activates cannabinoid receptors, especially CBD1 receptors involved in reward, motivation, mood, and stress regulation. When those receptors are stimulated again and again, the brain adapts. One of the most common adaptations is tolerance, meaning the receptors become less responsive and higher amounts of THC are needed to produce the same effects. In some individuals, tolerance can progress into dependence. Dependence simply means the brain is adjusted to the regular presence of THC, and when use suddenly stops, the system needs time to recalibrate. During that period, people may experience withdrawal symptoms such as irritability, anxiety, changes in sleep, or reduced appetite. These symptoms reflect neurochemical adjustment, and they typically resolve with time. Now, dependence is not the same thing as addiction. Addiction refers to a behavioral pattern in which use continues despite negative consequences with impaired control, cravings, and disruption in daily life. Importantly, someone can show signs of dependence without meeting the criteria for addiction. But when cannabis use begins during adolescence while the brain is still developing, that risk increases to about 1 in 6. In terms of current prevalence, an estimated 14 million people aged 12 and older in the United States met criteria for cannabis use disorder in 2020. And by 2023, that number had risen to about 19 million, representing a significant but still minority portion of overall cannabis users. Alcohol and opioids do carry a much higher risk of severe physical dependence, organ damage, and overdose, which is why they contribute to a greater burden of disease and mortality. So, no, not everyone who uses cannabis becomes dependent or addicted. Many people use cannabis without ever developing significant problems. But THC is also not biologically neutral. It interacts with real neural circuits involved in reward, motivation, and stress regulation. And like any system in the body, those circuits adapt to repeated stimulation. The takeaway here is balance. The endocannabinoidsystem evolved to function within a certain physiological range. Repeatedly pushing that system in one direction, especially with frequent or high-doses THC exposure, can lead to adaptations that are not always desirable. And understanding where those lines are can help people make informed decisions about its use. One of my biggest goals with teaching in this lab and making online content is to spark that love of learning in people, helping them unlock what they're truly capable of. And that's exactly what Brilliant, the sponsor of today's video, has helped do for me. Brilliant turns anyone into a confident problem solver. Whether you're tackling math concepts that used to trip you up or diving into computer science ideas, Brilliant helps those concepts click in a whole new way. I've personally been using Brilliant to sharpen my skills beyond biology because it's been a while since I've taken a math class. So lately, I've been getting into their lessons on exponential functions. And I love how Brilliant helps you excel through visual interactive problem solving and personalized practice that builds genuine understanding. Their courses are also crafted by an award-winning team from places like MIT and Caltech, starting you at the right level based on your background with practice sets and endoful reviews personalized just for you. Now, a lot of you watching might be eyeing the medical field. And trust me, Brilliant has got you covered with lessons that build the foundation for the math and data analysis that you'll need. Plus, since many users learn on their phones, it's seamless to jump on at any time. And so, if you want to try learning for free on Brilliant for a full 30 days, go to brilliant.org/shay. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description. Brilliant is also giving our viewers 20% off an annual premium subscription, which gives you unlimited daily access to everything on Brilliant. Thanks again to Brilliant for sponsoring today's video, and thank you to all of you for watching and supporting our channel. And of course, we'll see you in the next one.